Hello and welcome to Love, Dating, and Relationships. I am your host, Julie Grimm. I'm a guide and healer in the Modern Mystery School, and I'm so thrilled to have Dr. Divina Ann Donnelly with me here today. I have to read now because of all of her accomplishments. They are quite extensive. So Dr. Divina Ann is a medical doctor with over 30 years of medical experience, as well as a best-selling author. She's a healer and an international teacher in the Modern Mystery School, and she's responsible for Modern Mystery School Ireland, as well as being part of the Council of 12 Goddesses. So thank you so much, Dr. Divina Ann, for being with me today. So thrilled
Thank
and
you for
excited.
having me.
Yes. So we'll just get into it. Preparing for this call, we were talking about the holidays, which are coming up here for everybody, and how much goes into preparing for the holidays, preparing for people that you might see in the holidays, preparing for relationships that might be new or might have just ended in the holidays, and all that might be going on for people listening. So what do you see with people? What's the number one thing or top few things that you see as people are preparing for the holidays, stresses that might be coming up specifically around relationships?
This is a beautiful question, Julie, and one that is very dear to my heart because the thing that I see most right now is a lot of heartache. I would say that Christmas is one of those times when people are under a lot of pressure to maybe to have the perfect relationships, to have, the kiss under the mistletoe, to have the coziness in front of the fire, to have all the family and all the trimmings and all the twinkly lights and all the sparkle of Christmas. And sometimes the reality doesn't measure up to that. And when it doesn't, sometimes we can feel an added sense of maybe failure is a strong word, but people can feel that really deeply at a time like Christmas. And also, time of loss, although people might have had losses in their lives during the last year. And when it comes to Christmas, it's intensified because usually we think of times when we would have been naturally together. So I know it's a time to celebrate. I know all of these things and it's beautiful. And when that's going right, it's amazing. But yes, when it's not, it's how we handle that, how we look after ourselves, how we really approach that core relationship in our lives, which is the way that we really look after the relationship that we have with ourselves. And sometimes when we have a loved one who is really needing us, that can come second. But if we do not fill our own well, we cannot give from an empty well. And that is a huge piece around Christmas, is focusing on what keeps us strong, connected to our life force, connected to light, and connected to everything that helps us to be at the best that we can be so that we can give the best in our relationships as well.
I love that you were saying, and I remember in your book that you've written, Once Upon a Tinder, which is so lovely for everybody out there. If you're looking for some tips about how to take dating less seriously, have more fun and play, you know, you mentioned that desperation that can occur when we're dating for the first time. And I can imagine too, around the holidays, you're feeling kind of alone. Maybe you're not feeling very full of your connection to self and your joy, like you just mentioned, how easy it would be to slip into some of those energies of seriousness and desperation and feeling like we need somebody else to fill us up.
Yes, I think that comes very much with the ideal Christmas, kiss under the mistletoe, these things that are images that we see very often. And primarily, until we can say that we prioritize, or at least we know what our priorities are, where we know what is important to us. When we meet another person, then we have something to really talk about, something to maybe even have a little friction over, something that where we are aware of what is core value within us and part of our core values. And once we know that, that's a very important thing to know. We can then create a negotiation with another person, or we can create something together that is based on something that is important to both of you, and in a way that has a strong foundation. Now, I agree. I wrote my a little book after having experienced a separation in my own marriage and experiencing that huge loss, that first Christmas, that experience of, you know, thinking that there was never going to be anything out there for me ever, ever, ever again. It was the brokenheartedness that comes with that. But understanding that, yes, I could experience that grief and be supported by people who loved me. I was very, very lucky in that I had family around me who were willing to give me that little bit of space when I needed it, but also to give me that support when, you know, I came forward to ask for it. So knowing what's right for you is important, so that you can then begin to blossom again. Because one of the things we talked about earlier, Julie, was this aspect that when we have a loss in our lives, we generally shut down. And we are not designed to live in a shutdown space, in a shutdown state. We are designed to be open and blossoming like a flower all the time, even when we are hurt. Now, I know that that sounds almost impossible, but it is my personal experience that when I was shut down, that hurt me more than the actual loss. I felt that. I wasn't able to be who I truly was around anyone. Of course, there had to be a period of grief. And when we understand what grieving is, you know, it's that sense of initial disbelief and then the various stages of feeling low, of maybe a little bit angry at some point, then coming to a sense of acceptance. And of course, there's denial mixed into that as well, and varying stages of that with that. We need to honor that process, but then we need to, you know, when we're ready to step out again, when we're ready to experience something again, we want to be able to cut the ties with the old experiences so that we're not bringing the last relationship into our new relationship. Because I have experienced that very much as well, where I almost expected the new relationship to behave in the same way that the old relationship did. But of course, until that was healed within me, that pattern was going to repeat itself again. And that is where the work that we talk about, Julie, in the mystery school is so important, because we need to be able to clear out all of those patterns, including those that are buried within the subconscious mind. And there is nothing honestly designed in this physical world as powerful as the study of the universal Hermetic ray Kabbalah to empty the subconscious mind. Now, it has been described as, you know, a study of 1 year up the tree has been described to be equal to 10 years in psychotherapy. That is how powerful it is. So I highly recommend that, you know, to anyone who really wants to totally transform their lives. And when we talk about that, the only prerequisites for that are a life activation and to become an initiate, which is to study the 2-day Empower Thyself, which I know you teach. So it's pretty awesome, pretty awesome. And we do have guides in 60 countries around the world. So there will be someone close to you if you're watching this, you know, from outside the Boston area, or you're across the other side of the world. There will be someone close to you to help you to step on this path of total transformation of your life, because we all are subject to sometimes regurgitating the past, and that can come up in patterns within our relationships, and we're wondering, why is this happening again? And I can reassure you that the reason for that lies deep in your own core. Our relationships serve us. They serve us all the time. They reflect us to ourselves. So if you have someone in your life who is pushing your buttons, who is making you think, darn this person again. Why do they always do this? Please look at your beautiful self. There is something in this to teach you. It might be about setting better boundaries. It might be about, understanding that this is a human trait that is also within us that we're not maybe seeing. Whatever it is, look more closely in the mirror, the man or the woman in the mirror, and see what's really going on there. And we know, according to mystery school teachings, that above the gateway to every mystery school on this planet are the words, know thyself. And honestly, the answer to one's own deepest questions, and indeed the deepest questions that are related to the entirety of our universe, lie within. Those answers lie within.
That's amazing and so powerful. The idea that relationship patterns don't need to continue. We can let them go. We can
No.
rewrite them. We can rewrite them. And also what you've said about it can be more painful to close your heart, to close your system, than to open it. Because I can imagine a lot of people listening, they say, oh, well, that's so wonderful that she's saying that, but can I really do it? And it's like, not only can you do it, but it's actually less painful than continuing to live in that state where you're actually not open, you're not allowing both, I don't want to say good and bad, but just life with everything, every flavor that life brings you. Some we might label as bad and some we might label as good, but simply life, the experience of life to be felt.
Yes, I like to call it living life alive. If we're not prepared to take the risks, then we will never know. And that's actually part of what the book is about, because a lot of the stories, it's like a series of short stories that are based on truths, and about different encounters and different relationships that came out of the Tinder app. And it's the learning, and then each chapter gives you a little account of what happened, and then the next chapter is the learning that came from that, the core learning. And for me, it was vital to put this out here so that it is written as a woman, but of course the lessons in here are for men and women, and also in the way that we can relate to each other and what we can expect as etiquette within, meeting someone for the first time, and what comes with that, because there is a lot of love advice out there, and I looked at a lot of it because I wanted to know what people were saying. I wanted to know what men were saying about women. I wanted to know what women were saying about men. And I wanted to see the differences. And to be honest with you, I didn't think a lot of it was very respectful. I honestly didn't. I find that a lot of it was manipulative, and a lot of it was expecting people to behave in certain ways. But the truth is, people are people, and they come from their experiences, and you will experience all kinds of experiences when you put yourself out there. It's how you respond to the experience that is where the learning lies. And as a woman, we are truly the birthers of what is new into this world. And quite frankly, right now, I have seen a lot of not so high behavior coming from women towards men. It's like we're expecting the worst from men, whereas in actual fact, there are so many good men out there. So many good men looking for a good woman. And we need to put ourselves out there. Now, I'm speaking specifically to the male female relationship because that is where my experience lies, Julie. I'm not saying that this doesn't exist out there for same gender relationships either, but I'm just speaking specifically because that's my experience. But I'm also very, very aware that, we each hold dominantly either a masculine or a feminine energy within us. And so that is what I'm speaking to.
Yeah. What you're saying too, the women who might label men as bad, it reminds me of what we just spoke about, that maybe they're bringing their past experiences and they're projecting it to future, present and future experiences. Perhaps they had something that happened to them, they got hurt, and now all of a sudden, all these future people that they meet, all these future men, well, they're already not good from day one. But it's such a disservice, not only to them, to ourselves, as people trying to establish new relationships and having hope for future love, but also to those men, because they start to believe potentially about themselves that they aren't good either, which is so sad, when there are so many good men out there.
Yeah, that does, it serves as a huge amount of heartache on our planet when there are assumptions made. Now, we know as initiates that assumption is the enemy of truth. To assume that there's negativity about someone before they even get a chance to reveal themselves. And in the mystery school, we each look to our fellow human beings as being gods and goddesses. And so, as initiates, we act as witnesses to the best in a human being. And we call forth that the very best in the people that we meet. And of course, people have their hurts and they have their traumas, and they also have their patterns that they act out from. And very often, this is seen as the personality, which is really what effectively is the barrier between us and our divinity. We think our personality is us, and it's not. It's like it's really us acting out from our previous experiences rather than us trusting life, trusting our gut, trusting our intuition, trusting what's right in front of us, which is another god and goddess. And so that's a huge learning. But from the tools that we use in the mystery school as well, we can heighten our abilities to always to always call that forth in everything and everyone around us. To call forth we could call it magic, to call forth the beauty and the good in everything and in everyone. And of course, to call that in ourselves as well, to hold the responsibility of that, to bear witness to that in our own lives as well. But we have the tools to help us to continue to do that as well when we are working on the initiatory path.
Yes, and I've experienced that for myself. In a way, you could see it as weaving new patterns, but patterns of beauty, patterns of joy, harmony in relationships. And I know for myself, a big piece was letting go of what I thought I knew about somebody and simply allowing them to be. just be, just like I want people to let me just be, right? But I needed to do that for others where I had so many stories about the past, things that had happened, and it was a barrier that was also, like you mentioned, creating a negative pattern. It was perpetuating something I said I don't want to perpetuate, and yet all I did was, yeah, and yet my behavior and the way I was regarding that person was almost keeping them in that box, which
Mm.
which, ultimately I did away with.
Oh, such a liberating thing, believe me. And there are always things to work on in relationships. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have things to learn and to evolve into. And that's the wonderment of living life. So yes, there's always more to learn. And I'm so grateful for this life. I'm so grateful for relationships of all kinds, and yeah, and just for the opportunity to live life in its fullness and truly alive.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. It was so great. And for those of you who are listening, would like to find the book, we will have links below available and other ways that you can contact Divina Ann and other guides or healers who might be in your area. So thank you so much, Divina Ann.
It's such a pleasure, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so
Goodbye,
glad it
everybody.
worked out.
Me too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.